All right, Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
We're talking about frenemies. So the headline coming out of Friday's White House meeting wasn't just that New York mayors-elect Zohran Mamdani and President Donald Trump finally sat down. It's that the meeting actually worked. And in a political climate where everything feels like a cage match, the fact that the two didn't turn this into pay-per-view is a plot twist that America and I did not see coming. For days, the expectation was gladiator-style confrontation, two men on opposite ends of the political spectrum trading blows. But instead of fireworks, we got civility, even a little chemistry. And that says something. Not everything in politics has to be a blood sport. Here's a bit from the meeting.
I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am. I will say there's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes. Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
What we saw on Friday was very on brand for Mamdani, whose superpower has been really charming skeptics and even straight up adversaries, from taxi drivers we've seen him with to real estate moguls and apparently even a president. Trump has always had a soft spot for winners, and Mamdani's underdog victory clearly caught his attention. His earlier digs, calling Mamdani a, quote, communist, now feel more like hazing than hostility. Now, these two men actually have more in common than either camp would admit. Both are populists. They're both outsiders and disruptors that question the establishment. And they both know firsthand that New York real estate prices could humble a billionaire and a democratic socialist in the same breath. By the time they stepped in front of the cameras, the tone was surprisingly cordial. Trump even said to a reporter after the meeting, quote, "We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job." That's something, especially from a president who, before the meeting and during the campaign trail for Mamdani, threatened to deport Mamdani. And on Sunday's Meet the Press, Mamdani didn't walk back anything he said in the past either.
Just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do?
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement, about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
And that last line is the real story. Affordability, housing, childcare, groceries, the basic costs crushing people were at the heartbeat of Mamdani's campaign. And they're also very similar to the ones that Trump campaigned on. Now, when two politicians from totally different solar systems respond to the same pain points, maybe the country isn't as divided as the headlines suggest. Yes, they've traded insults for months. Yes, this meeting could have gone off the rails, but it didn't. And as a native New Yorker with families still navigating the chaos of the city, I can tell you, people actually welcome this moment. Not because they suddenly agree on politics, but because they're exhausted. Exhausted by partisan theater. Exhausted by leaders who seem more interested in scoring points than lowering costs. This wasn't a political love story. It was a grown-up one. A reminder that if two men who call each other everything but a child of God can sit down and talk affordability, maybe there's hope for the rest of these politicians.
Yeah, I was, I guess, a little surprised at how well they got along, but thinking about it more, Trump because Trump is such a star, he recognizes star power, and the truth is that Zohran Mamdani, while I don't like his ideas at all, and I wish he had not won.
Oh, just skip all that, just say he's a star.
He does have a certain amount of, he has charisma and he has star power. It's clear that he does. And Trump appreciates that about him. I also think Trump clearly likes to be adored. He likes positive attention. He likes friendliness and warmth. And I think sometimes, but now that he's won totally over the Republican Party and the conservative movement, I think sometimes the praise he gets from his cabinet people or conservative talking heads is so sycophantic and so obligatory that it doesn't scratch that same itch. So to get, even some warmth from someone who totally disagrees with him, I think he kind of appreciates that more. He liked the guy. What can he say? He liked the guy. They got along, and I hope them getting along means good things for New York. And that would be fine.
It's so touch and go because I think why everyone was on edge is because we've seen leaders in the White House get completely berated, whether it was by J.D. Vance and Trump or just Trump, the president of Ukraine.
I mean, Zelensky's really the only one,
well,
though.
no,
For the most part, he
remember
gets
the president
along.
of South Africa came in there and they had news articles. They just completely lambasted that man. They didn't give him a chance to. They had a plan of attack that was going to be on national TV. So no one knew what was coming. Even with the attack on Marjorie Taylor Greene, you would think they would have sorted it out. This became a public
Well, but that
spat
wasn't
on-
to her face.
It wasn't to her face, but it became really public, and she even quit to that extent. So we know that he doesn't hold tongue for anybody. So why
he was complimenting a former ISIS fighter who now heads Syria, right? He likes to entertain people. He asked one Arab state leader recently how many wives he has and joked about it, right? He's a content creator first. He's a reality TV star. He likes to create good television moments, and them getting along was one of them.
And I think I've seen a lot of pieces written by a lot of mainstream media like, oh, New Yorkers don't want to see this. Well, I don't know. I lived in New York my whole life, and most of my family still lives there. People certainly don't want to see nothing happen. I think with the stress and anxiety people have over the lack of things that Congress actually is accomplishing, people would like to see more dialogue happen. And what are we going to do? I mean, we're still in year one of President Trump's presidency. Either we're going to work on something together or we're not. And we're not going to get anything accomplished. And so I think with Mamdani leaving there and seeming confident that he shared his philosophy, and he said this on Meet the Press about not having ICE come into New York, perhaps a dialogue can be had. And I always think that the president, who is where the buck should stop on everything and start because he's the leader of this country, should initiate that calm civil dialogue with mayors and governors of states before sending ICE or national troops into their cities and states. But since Mamdani called this meeting and came to the president and said that he has full trust in the NYPD to do its job and won't need any national troops anywhere to deal with immigration or anything else, it seems like the president said he will back off of that idea. And Mamdani feels confident that he will. So it's been interesting to see their dynamic. And is President Trump trying to send a message like, schedule a meeting with me and you'll get what you want? And to me, that's so petty, but let's just please, because people a lot of people don't want the National Guard in their cities and states. And so maybe these meetings are more beneficial than you could think they might be. And that's a good thing.
Also, I don't agree, obviously, that Trump is a fascist, but the idea that, let's say he was a fascist and Mamdani is a socialist, the idea that fascists and socialists can't get along.
No, he called him a communist. He keeps calling Mamdani a communist.
Okay, the fascists, fascist Germany and communist Soviet Union had a non-aggression principle initially in place. The fascist movement in Germany began as the National Socialist Party. The policies of fascism and socialism are not incompatible. They both involve massive government control of the means of production, the industries, the making the economy serve the nation. They're both anti-market ideologies. They have plenty in common. Now, I think they're both terrible ideologies, to be clear, but they get along with each other perfectly fine and have historically. So the idea that, if you're a socialist, you must hate a fascist and vice versa. No, too much of them agreeing is going to be bad for the economy. Let me tell you, that's how those things go down, because they start tinkering with the operations of markets, which are the only things that actually bring down prices and create prosperity. So I would not like to see I think it's a red-brown alliance. That's very scary.
I think that this is like that Joe Rogan thing playing out that we saw happen. How could you support Trump and how could you also support Bernie Sanders? Well, look, this is an example. I mean, they're in the office. They agree. I mean, President Trump has agreed to invest government funds into privatized companies.
And I hate
that is not particularly Republican, right?
It's fascist and socialist.
Okay, so maybe that's why my argument on Friday, which is why I wanted to talk about it again today with Amber, was that they are very similar. They are very similar policy-wise. President Trump has departed from a lot of what the traditional Republicans would do, but you call that anomaly something that's the new Republican Party. So it's going to be interesting, like I keep saying, to see what happens when he leaves, because a lot of what he does, even raising costs, raising our debt, all these things are not traditional conservative policies. So where does the party even stand after all this?
There's some aspects of traditional conservatism that I like having shaken up, particularly on the foreign policy side of things, where I think Trump has done a lot of good. On the economic side, I'm much less convinced, and I'm a little worried about any new fondness for socialism. It's bad even when it's a Republican idea. Lindsey, what is in your lens today?
I don't want to add to your gloomy mood, but I might add a little bit. As we head into the holidays, Americans aren't feeling the economic cheer. And the latest CBS News YouGov poll shows it's not just Democrats or independents saying that. Even Republicans are increasingly frustrated with the economic reality under President Trump. And they're not whispering about it. They're showing it in the numbers. So Trump won office promising to bring down prices. But 11 months in, prices are still climbing. Grocery costs more, electric bills are up. New cars, those price tags are breaking records. And the annual rate of inflation was 3% in September, almost exactly where it was on Inauguration Day. So if you're wondering whether voters are imagining the, quote, affordability crisis, the answer is no. They're living it every day. And that's why Trump's approval rating on the economy has dropped to just 36% today, down 15 points since March, according to the latest polling. That's a staggering drop in confidence for a president who built his political brand on being the businessman in chief. A majority of voters now say his policies are raising food and grocery costs. Even the people who judge him mostly on the economy feel he's not spending enough time actually fixing it. Here's the headline that surprised me. Republican disapproval is climbing too. 4 in 10 Republicans say Trump is portraying prices and inflation as better than they really are. That's not the fake news media. That's his own base calling out the disconnect between his message and their real world receipts. The administration has floated some big ideas like a potential $2,000 stimulus check funded by tariffs and the idea of 50-year mortgages. But economists across the board say those proposals don't address what's actually driving the crisis. Tariffs are just taxes by another name, taxes on imports that businesses pay up front. Now, early on, businesses absorbed the costs, hoping the tariffs wouldn't last. But as tariffs have continued, companies have started passing more and more of that cost directly to consumers. Goldman Sachs estimates that the share of tariff costs pushed onto consumers has jumped from 22% in April to 55% by October, and could reach 67% by mid next year. In other words, the longer the tariffs stay, the more Americans will pay. If you want proof, look at your grocery store. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, grocery prices rose 2.7% in the 12 months to September 2025, with sharp increases in things like coffee by 18.9%, ground beef 12.9%, and even bananas went up 6.9%. Since Trump took office, prices have risen almost every single month. And there are 2 major reasons. 1, tariffs, and a third of America's coffee comes from Brazil, which now carries a 50% tariff. And 2, labor shortages. Trump's crackdown on undocumented immigration is reshaping the farm labor force, where nearly 40% of workers are estimated to be undocumented. That's 1 million workers exiting the system, according to the New York Times. And now farmers must raise wages to pull in more labor. Those higher costs eventually hit shoppers. Economists say it's nearly impossible to quantify exactly how much, but the direction is clear. I'm not done. Cars are now more expensive than ever. According to Kelley Blue Book, the average price of a new car topped $50,000 in September. Tariffs have also been the biggest factor on these rising car prices, and they've been nothing but inflationary. The bottom line is that voters aren't reacting to vibes. They're reacting to their bills. And the more they feel squeezed, the more those feelings are showing up in Trump's poll numbers.
Well, this is one of those times where I don't have very much to disagree with. As you know, I'm also very skeptical of Trump's tariff policies. I agree with you that tariffs are taxes, and I think that taxes are bad. I'm heartened to hear Democratic-aligned people concede the taxes are bad. Of course, Zoran Mamdani, the newly elected mayor of New York
I didn't say
City,
all taxes are bad. I said taxes.
Wants to dramatically increase taxes. And so, no surprise that him and Trump are getting along then. Republicans and Democrats coming together to raise your taxes, the American people. I don't know how they feel about that. One of the American people, don't feel very strongly about it. I think it's ruining our economy, and it is contributing to higher prices of all these things. My banana, ground beef, what was the other product?
What was it? Banana,
ground beef, and
coffee.
Coffee, oh yes.
Coffee is an everyday thing for me, so that was a big deal when I saw that number. That's pretty ridiculous.
I eat a lot of ground beef too.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
You're like a taco?
Yeah, tacos.
Okay.
Yeah. Mild salsa.
Okay,
only for me.
like Taco Trump?
Oh. We're gonna be at your little laugh for a
So
while.
look, listen, I just want to know how you rectify it. You never have to make a point that you don't agree with, right? And so you've already been clear about how you feel about tariffs. But I do think that, remember when Biden was in office, he was always trying to say, wait, the economy's not bad. Look at these numbers over here. And we're like, no, we actually can't afford this stuff. Like President Trump is doing the same thing. And
and it's going to come to the same end: electoral losses. You can't try to argue with the American people when they're suffering that it's not so bad. What are you complaining about? Quit your belly aching. Doesn't work. Just doesn't work. Even if he was correct, it wouldn't work. You have to listen to people's pain and frustration and come up with a solution. And I think the solution is perfectly obvious. Just spend less money. Just have less government control of the economy and let markets sort things out. It works every time. It always works. And government leaders always try to come up with some convoluted, well, if we subsidize this and punish this and put tariffs on this and raise taxes on this and have government do more on this and have government manage this more, it always comes to the same ruinous result. The answer is very simple, and maybe simple isn't satisfying to people, but just be hands off and let us buy our bananas from wherever, and then there'll be more bananas, and then they'll cost less. Now, the left plan is like, do you even need bananas? Seriously, I've heard people on the left say that we shouldn't be
Kinsley and I
stealing
quite like
from
bananas,
right. We're going to have that bananas is like a capitalist luxury good. I mean, it is a capitalist luxury good. There'd be no bananas without capitalism. They'd be just for the people of wherever bananas come from, South America, and the coffee would all be in Brazil. We like to trade. We give them money. They give us goods. Trade is a good thing. And I don't know why so many Republicans and Democrats try to talk themselves out of the most basic economic observation since the time of the invisible hand.
Well, one place
that trade is good and lowers the cost of things.
One place where Democrats are trying to, whatever their motivation is, but save the economy would be with the undocumented immigrants situation. Because as you see, I pointed out directly how it's affecting farmers and farm owners and the labor force in the farm industry. And these are numbers according to the New York Times. So if we're seeing that there is an uptick in people leaving or fleeing or feeling scared to work on these farms or even getting arrested, then what do you want farmers to do? They're going to bring up the cost when they hire people that cost more. And so that gets passed on to the consumers. Tariffs is one issue, but the second biggest issue was the attack on undocumented.
Yeah, I mean, that one's a little bit more complicated, even though I personally would be in favor of allowing for more immigration so that we can bring down food costs for that reason. However, there's more, I would say, government legitimacy toward policing illegal immigration than the tariff authority is A, just blatantly unconstitutional on its face, and B, accomplishes nothing but just raises prices. Many Americans would argue that illegal immigrants broke the law and thus should go back, even if it's worse for our economy. You know what I mean? There's different priorities.
Right.
Whereas with the tariffs, I guess with the tariffs, the other priority is national security. Although a lot of them can't even be defended on national security grounds because
and not relying on foreign people and goods. Bringing it all back to America. That's Trump's end goal that he thinks he'll accomplish.
Yeah, but that's just
presidency.
stupid. That's just North Korean autarky, and it just makes everything more expensive. We don't need to build just in the same way that you don't need to build your own tables and chairs in your apartment. I still care about my family. You still care about your family if you buy you're not doing it in the household. We rely on others for goods and services. We trade. And that can be expanded to outside the nation with plenty of trading partners who want to participate in our prosperity and our economy and don't mean us any harm. Maybe that's not China, but there's a lot of other places that fit that bill.
Yeah, well, we've been on the same page way too much for my comfortability today.
Well, I think that's going to come to an end shortly. Lindsey, what is in your lens today?
Let's talk about it. So if you've been feeling like Democratic leadership is stuck in neutral while the political world is speeding at 90 miles per hour, you're not alone. And based on what's happening behind closed doors in Washington, some senators aren't just frustrated, they're straight up fed up. There's a quiet rebellion brewing in the Senate. A group of liberal lawmakers, some heavy hitters, have formed what they call the Fight Club. And while the name might sound dramatic, their point is pretty simple. They don't think Chuck Schumer is steering the party in the right direction. They're challenging his strategy, his decisions around the 2026 midterms, and honestly, his entire approach to dealing with President Donald Trump. This isn't just a progressive wish list. These senators, Chris Van Hollen, Tina Smith, Chris Murphy, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey, Jeff Merkley, Martin Heinrich, are raising a red flag about something a lot of Democratic voters feel, that the party keeps defaulting to safe, establishment-approved candidates when the base is clearly hungry for boldness. They've taken issue with Schumer and Senator Kristen Gillibrand's role in nudging donors towards candidates like Angie Craig in Minnesota and Haley Stevens in Michigan, while progressive contenders are sidelined. When they confronted leadership about this, reportedly in private meetings, they were told there's no favoritism happening, which only made them more furious. And it's not just the Senate. A wave of House Democrats have openly turned on Schumer also. Rep. Pramila Jayapal said flat out, quote, "I think he should step down. They should get somebody new." Rep. Yasmin Ansari said, quote, "It's past time to start thinking about new leadership for Senate Democrats that meets the moment." And Representative Ayanna Pressley said, quote, "I think that we find ourselves in an unprecedented moment, and that unprecedented moment demands new leadership, a different approach." Representative Ro Khanna took to X, posting, quote, "Senator Schumer is no longer effective and should be replaced. If you can't lead the fight to stop healthcare premiums from skyrocketing for Americans, what will you fight for?" That's not fringe talk. That's a pattern. Meanwhile, inside the Senate Fight Club, members are discussing joint fundraising endorsements, even coordinated appearances together. Their first move, a joint video endorsing Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota over the establishment-backed Angie Craig. Their message is clear. If Democrats want energy, vision, and a real shot at regaining the Senate majority, the party can't keep relying on yesterday's playbook. And maybe that's the real question. At a moment when young voters are disengaging with the Democratic Party, trust is low, and the stakes couldn't be higher, is it time to let the new leaders take the wheel? Because whether it's a fight club in the Senate or fed up lawmakers in the House, this noise is just not going away. And in politics, when this many people start clearing their throat at the same time, someone in leadership should probably start listening. So I'll be the first one to call out the Democrats have been in disarray since Kamala lost. We talk about it often. I think the Republicans are
It's fun to talk about.
even more in shambles or equally in shambles.
I don't know about that.
I do. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving the party, Massey coming at
she's
Trump
gone.
every single day. I know, but it's still, that's what the party feels. There's a whole swath of people that think there's a problem with the way that the Epstein files were handled. There's a lot going on over there. But let's park that right in the parking lot. We're going to talk about the Democrats.
Yes.
They have a lot going on, and they can't just parade around saying, well, we're not Trump. That might have worked when Biden won the election. People are over that. What are you bringing to the table? And I think a lot of people tried to tie Mamdani to the overall party, and Democrats, like Chuck Schumer and others, tried to shun him. And even if that's not the full direction of the party, when you see Mamdani go into Trump's Oval Office and they even have an amicable meeting, you wonder why Democrats couldn't bear to embrace this man and some of his policies without saying they embrace the entire system that he's trying to set up and can't figure out what their new strategy might look like. So I think the frustrating part is that the establishment candidates and people who've been there for years want to keep things as the same old, same old. And a lot of people that are speaking up, and young voters, and this is on both sides of the aisle, but I'm talking about Democrats now, are really just fed up with doing things the same. They feel like nothing much has changed. And this is why you're seeing that voters who consistently turned out in past elections sat out the last one, or just switch parties, or would put their hands up and we're just like, oh, I'm just doing this because I'm here so I don't get fined. And that's not you don't want that type of apathetic attitude towards an election. You want to reignite people. And I think now is a great time to try to figure out how to capture the heart, minds, and also talk to the real issues that voters are looking for people to talk to, and not the establishment, same old, same old.
Well, there's talking about the issues people care about, which I think maybe the Democratic Party is finally starting to do, that it's all going to be about affordability. It's going to be about the cost of food and groceries, inflation-related concerns, and it's going to be about the cost of housing and the cost of getting childcare. There was a big piece in the Free Press yesterday about how it was provocatively titled, and I think flawed in several ways, but it was about how we should consider the new poverty line to be an income of $100,000 a year, which is very provocative. I don't think that's true at all in
I now want to read that.
Major areas of the country, where I'm from in the Midwest. If you make $100,000 a year, you can live quite comfortably. If you're in the heart of D.C. or New York, now, are you starving? Are you in poverty at that income? No, but could you support a family of 4 on that income, you would have to make some very difficult choices because childcare alone in the District of Columbia costs about $30,000 a year. Add in rent or whatever housing cost, that's going to be the entire income. You wouldn't have anything left over for food. So that speaks to the need. Some of these things, especially, and I talk about this all the time, that young people need. Childcare, housing is so, what? What are you saying?
You're speaking to all the needs that Mamdani was talking about meeting.
Well, right, but his solutions are bad. His solutions are greater government control and subsidization of these products, which is what makes them more expensive in the first place. That is not the answer, in my view. But you're right that Democrats are talking about affordability. I don't think they have good answers to affordability, but they are talking about it, and Trump's ignoring it right now. Trump says, no, inflation's fine. It's gotten better. What are you talking about? Please ignore this. Also, increasingly I hear Republicans talk about ridiculous ideas like getting rid of property taxes. I want to get rid of all taxes, but that's the very last tax I get rid of because that's a tax on people who bought their homes when there was major availability of housing. They bought their houses for peanuts. We're getting rid of, shifting the cost of paying for the vast entitlement system away from property tax is shifting it to people, to young people. I don't want to raise income tax. I mean, I don't want to raise taxes at all, but I would rather have property tax and really sales tax would be my way to raise revenue. Not income tax. That's a tax on young people. And we have to, Republicans have to be very clear-eyed about how screwed young people are in this system right now and how that's going to delay them starting families. It makes them renters permanently. And I know that remote work means, yes, sometimes you can go live in the Midwest or the Sun Belt where everything's more affordable, but not everybody can do that. So we have to have issues with the affordability crisis. Democrats, in my view, have the wrong answers. They have answers that won't work. They have failed ideas, but they are talking about the need to address that crisis more so than Republicans are these days.
Well, the president also had a recent suggestion, which I'm assuming is representative of the Republican Party. Maybe I'm overspeaking, but he wants to give people option for 50-year mortgages. And if you understand that's a terrible idea, because if you think about
we all dislike that idea. Not a single person likes that idea.
Well, let me tell you, there's a whole story about the median age rising for buying a home.
Right.
So as it gets higher and higher, people will pass away in those 50 years.
Right.
So these are, again, defaulted or loans that never get fully paid off. They're just like sending random money that's never, it's just like all the stuff that doesn't achieve the American dream, because technically you will have never.
At 50 years, you're renting because very few people live in the same house for 50 years.
Right.
So you're renting and you're paying. The interest is going to get you over time. You're going to pay more. People, this is like delayed. Do you want one cookie now or 2 cookies later? You're taking the 1 cookie now.
But I prefer to hear
exact opposite of that.
A solution like Mamdani that laid out that you don't want. I mean, there's not an alternative solution that's being laid out that's like, well, listen to the Republican strategy. I would prefer, even as somebody who's like a mom who understands mothers in New York and how unaffordable, you mentioned that $30,000 price tag, that is real, right? To try to take care of a child. So when I think about living in a big city and think about moms there, he's speaking to them, what's wrong with trying stuff? You might think it's completely nonsensical, but so is a 50-year mortgage for a new mom trying to take care of a child with also a $30,000 child care bill over their head. So, like, what is being offered from the other part of the party?
We need to build more housing. Build, baby, build.
Just make it.
That's my answer.
So the houses are going to get so skinny in New York. You're going to have a slip. You're going to be like in a shack now.
We can build on top of them.
Oh, just keep going up and up.
Up and up.
Like the Burj Khalifa in Dubai.
Right.
Just get it.
Why not?
Highest building in the world.
Why not?
Okay, that's what you want to do.
Lindsay, what is in your lens today?
Let's talk about this holiday lens. So walk into any coffee shop right now and you'll hear it. The whispered, half-joking panic of people clutching their first holiday lattes. Isn't it too early for this? Maybe, but the real sound underneath that question is a kind of financial dread, because this year, the holidays aren't just twinkly lights and matching pajamas. They're a mirror. And what they're reflecting back is a widening gap between those who can still afford to go big for Christmas and those quietly scaling everything down. Bank of America calls it a, quote, tale of 2 wallets. And that feels about right. Higher earners are planning to spend more. Lower income families are shopping earlier than ever. Well, because when your budget is tight, timing becomes a strategy. On social media, influencers are preaching de-influencing. Skip the new jammies, reuse decorations, hunt for secondhand gifts. It's not stingy. They're saying it's survival. And while we all love the tradition of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, it runs headfirst into the reality of this economy. Construction's costs for a float averaged $30,000 to $100,000 just 2 years ago for one of those things. Macy's pays about $140,000 a year in property taxes just to store those giant balloons. Inflating them, that can cost at a minimum $500,000 with more than 5,000 volunteers, 17 giant character balloons, 22 floats, and hundreds of performers. You get the point. It's a whole different financial universe than most Americans are living in. Meanwhile, shoppers on Main Street are being told that by the National Retail Federation that holiday spending is expected to slow this year. Tariffs, grocery prices, interest rates, everything is squeezing budgets. And it's changing how people talk about Christmas and, frankly, how they talk about politics. Days before President Donald Trump was sworn in for his second term, he promised to bring down the prices Americans were feeling at the gas pump and grocery store. But now he's defining a kind of freestyle capitalism. Tariffs here, deregulation there, government ownership stakes in private companies, without, according to experts, a clear logic. Take economist Marina Mazzucato, saying Trump's policies are, quote, more like an idiosyncratic hodgepodge, adding, quote, Trump is not asking what the problems that need to be solved are and how we can have public investment to solve those problems. He's just kind of throwing money around and imposing tariffs and taking these equity stakes in dismantling things. And voters have noticed. Exit polls from the 2024 election showed that Trump's message on prices resonated deeply with people making under $100,000 and with voters that don't have college degrees. But in the November off-year elections, those same working class voters turned around and elected Democrats in every single race where they were running, from moderates like Abigail Spanberger to Democratic Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Their message? Affordability. Because something real is shifting. Wage growth for low-income Americans is at its lowest in decades. The top 10% of households now accounts for nearly half of all consumer spending. Nearly 93% of all U.S. stock is owned by the wealthiest 20%. And first-time homebuyers, as we talked about earlier, hit an extremely high age and not a good milestone. That's a warning sign. So yes, the holidays are always emotional, but this year they're also a forecast of how many people feel, or how people feel about their future and their finances. And maybe, just maybe, what kind of mood they'll be in next time they step into a voting booth. I don't think you can separate the feeling that people have about spending, finance, income this Christmas, being 11 months into President Trump's term, and how they're going to feel when they are voting. And I understand the elections earlier this month were not like a major midterm election or a major year where a president's on the ballot, but I think it shows you frustration because maybe President Trump overpromised and underdelivered.
Well, I like some of what Trump is doing. I mean, this is what I always say. I like some of it, and I don't like other aspects of it. You called it freestyle capitalism. The capitalist aspects of the Trump agenda, I agree with. Not all of it is capitalism. Tariffs are not capitalism. Tariffs are the opposite of capitalism. The government taking an ownership stake in certain companies is as far from the opposite of capitalism as you can possibly get. Actually, that's socialism. When the government owns, runs, and centrally plans and manages aspects of the economies, including controlling certain firms, that's just socialism. Capitalism is, no, government's hands off, let the firms compete, the best one wins, let trade flourish, let us trade with firms in other countries. That's capitalism. So it's not freestyle capitalism to me. It's the opposite. It's managed trade. It's state capitalism. And state capitalism, another word for that is corporatism, and another word for that is socialism.
Well, the word that we use in comparing President Trump to Mamdani is a great segue because I see that you're comparing the two.
Their economic programs are a little
think that they're similar
for my taste.
That's kind of interesting, but I think when we're talking about the fact of the matter is that perhaps the president it's either one or two things. Either he was campaigning on something that he didn't plan to do because the prices are not down, or his policies are so erratic and break away from the traditional norms of the Republican Party that everybody is wholly confused. And it's not a situation where the whole country is suffering together because we're in some state that we can't get out of. It's a situation where rich people are getting really wealthy and more rich. And then poor people are getting more poor and more uncomfortable. And so when I say things to you about, and I know you're about to blow your top over this one, but he's building a $300 million ballroom, and poor people are getting poorer, and we're watching that happen. You cannot be frustrated when I say that he's out of touch as a president, because he's up in that 1%. But he also of people that he's probably made richer within the last year with his policies that are not.
I hope rich people continue to get richer.
But people in America are suffering. And so what are you doing for the everyday American that voted for you? You can't win with only the rich people voting for you in any election.
The Democratic
What's
solution
the plan for the Republican Party?
is just liquidate the billionaire, destroy the billionaires, take from the rich. It's never, let's improve the lives of the...
What if the billionaires can save 100 million?
Like Elizabeth Warren tweeted something like, you don't hate billionaires enough, or billionaires are afraid of this. This is the Democratic solution. They just want to steal from successful, productive people. They want to take their money. It's not about how can we uplift the poor, it's how can we hurt the rich. Because shrinking the inequality is what matters to the left, not actually improving the material standard of young people.
If the average American
I don't want to shrink the inequality, I want to lift everybody up.
Yes, but if we shrink the inequality, then we can also give people the opportunity to not feel like they're the worst part of society.
They shrink the inequality like this.
Yes.
Now there's very little inequality.
No, everybody's not going to be at the bottom.
And the rich people are a lot worse off.
Not going to be at the bottom.
And the poor people are worse off too. No, I want to do this.
Democrats
I want to do this.
Right. So if a lot of Democrats are fighting for. You don't have to demonstrate
this
anymore. We got it. You guys want to zoom in? He's showing us again. I think that what they're. Go ahead. Do your little.
Well, that's on your screen. Oh wait. It's hard to do it. Wait.
Okay. So the point is,
we can do little hand gestures.
If we make sure that we are making opportunities for people that are, let's say, entry-level candidates or people that are low-income earners to earn a fair share, which is what a lot of Democrats are often fighting for higher wages and things like that, then that would mean that maybe the billionaire, 100 billionaire, is like a 90 billionaire. But everyone down here is able to make a little bit more to afford groceries and everyday items. And so our society is not in a state of struggle. That means that the top 1% won't only be gaining all this money, which they're not trickling down, because a lot of people say and have looked at the trickle-down theory as a failure.
No society that tries to make the poor people better off by mass confiscation or management of the wealthy people's riches succeeds.
It's not confiscation. It's asking people not to take advantage of the lowest paid workers.
You love asking people not to.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully people will do the right thing.
I
live my life with a moral compass, so I'm hoping that people that are 100 millionaires could find an opportunity to take away maybe 10 of those million and try to give
it's not a zero-sum game. It's not
people
a
that
pie that has a finite amount. We can create more value and more jobs and more opportunities by having the government be more hands-off. And that's what will improve the material living conditions of the poor or of the lower class when there's better job opportunities, better economic opportunities, when the prices of things go down. The price of things usually go down because capitalism is working, because people are competing to offer you a better fridge or a cheaper fridge or a fridge that does more and it improves your life. The fridge costs less than it used to. Cars cost less than they used to. TVs cost less than they used to. All those sorts of things. They go down in price, not because the government takes money from some wealthy person and subsidizes making that more expensive.
They also go down in price
because the market competition drives the price down.
They also go down in price because of how cheaply they're being made, because companies are so greedy that they'll go to other countries and abuse laborers to make them for extremely cheap prices, then bring them over here. Yes, there's been plenty of, we can talk fast fashion, we can talk about appliances, yes. We go overseas and charge,
those people are literally dying to get those jobs. They want those jobs because there's so much poverty. They'd rather do them.
No.
Well, then it's the choice, the alternative is starve.